welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today is a very exciting day because I'm going to be talking about the 10 books that have changed my life and that I think everyone should read. Now, there's some of these books I can tell you you've never heard of or read, and there's some that maybe you've heard of that are maybe bestsellers, and they're bestsellers for a reason, right? But one of the things I've realized lately on my YouTube channel is I want to expand some of the topics I talk about. And to me, books and reading is one of my biggest passions. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic. I really want to share with you guys exactly the books that I've read a ton of books. Like I've read well over 400 books in my life. And these are the ones that really I think about a lot, are the ones to me that have made the biggest impact in my life. And most of them I've read in the last 2 to 3 years. So I definitely want to talk about each one and why you should read them and if you should read them, because again, not every book is for every person, but I think a lot of these would really help you in many ways. So make sure to subscribe for more videos and let's just get started. All right, so the first book is one that I read just a couple months ago. It has been a bestseller in the last year or so, and it is called The Psychology of Money. Now, what I love about this book is it's not so much about how to make money or anything like that. It's really how money affects us and how to think about money when it comes to saving, spending, that sort of thing. Again, it's more of a psychology book. But honestly, I think if every person in the US read this book, we would be in a lot better state. I think that there's a lot of things about, should you spend money just to show it off? There's a whole chapter about this guy who buys a Ferrari because he wants to impress people, but people are more impressed with the car than him. There's so many lessons in this book that I really took away from. In the middle, it gets a little intense, in terms of stocks and stuff, which I didn't really get. But, I think a lot of it is helpful to know. One of the biggest things I learned in this book, first of all, is the power of the news and the power of people talking about money and the stocks and how that affects the world, and also the fact that you cannot predict what's going to happen in the world. When people say this is what's going to happen next year, you cannot predict that. And it's really interesting to talk about. So that is my first book, is Psychology of Money. The second book is a pretty bestseller as well. It's actually, I think, #1 on Amazon right now for good reason. That is Atomic Habits. Atomic Habits was definitely one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life, and every single chapter I learned something. It is one of the most actionable, interesting books I've ever read, and I really think a lot of people, it's a reason it's a bestseller. People love it. It is amazing, and it's really easily kind of explained. I've read other books about habits. I've read a lot of Malcolm Gladwell's books. I've read The Power of Habit. This one is just better. It's just better. It has more information and a lot better concepts and easy to break down frameworks. One of my favorite things in this book they talk about is making things frictionless, right? Making it easy to do things. And then one of my favorite lessons I always think about is, never miss twice in a row. You can miss it one day, but never do it twice. And that I think about on an almost daily basis now. That is something I think about a lot. So Atomic Habits, there's a ton of YouTube videos about this book if you want to learn more. Okay, so this third book, I am obsessed with Ryan Holiday. I really love his YouTube channel, The Daily Stoic. I have started reading some of his books, but this one was the first one that I ever read by him, and it's the one that I think stuck with me the longest. It's called The Obstacle is the Way. Now, he's written a ton of books. He's got a lot of different books out there, but this one really impacted me. I really took it to heart because basically the book is about how obstacles actually are part of the experience and how to overcome hard things. Everyone has had struggles in life. Obviously, the pandemic has been rough for everyone, but really this book brought me a lot less anxiety. I have a generalized anxiety disorder, and reading this book really helped me think about when hard things or bad things were happening in my life. It really helped me change my perspective. So if you struggle with anxiety, if you struggle with difficulties in life, I highly recommend reading The Obstacle is the Way. It is game-changing. Okay, so this is a recent read for me. Marie Poulin actually recommended this book. I've heard her talk about it a few times, so I was like, well, if Marie recommends it, I should probably read it. It's called Everything in Its Place. This is a book that I started reading it and I was like, oh, this is very interesting. It's about cooking. It's about chefs. It's about how chefs organize their kitchen, but really it's a lot of lessons back to how we as people need to have organized workspaces, mindsets, all that stuff to really have everything in its place. And I really liked this book a lot. I definitely got a lot of lessons out of it. And I'm not really into like cooking or chefs, but I definitely learned a lot of interesting things about life and about why kitchens work. Why, it made me really realize and appreciate chefs a lot more too. But really, there's a lot of lessons that can be applied to every person. Okay, so this is a book I'm actually reading right now. I'm in the middle of it. I'm about halfway through. And so far, it is definitely one of the best books I've ever read. And it's called The Power to Be Disliked. I know Ali Abdaal just did a video on this, and I had been wanting to read this book for a long time, so I finally just went out and got it on Kindle. This book has changed the way I think about a lot of things, not just being disliked or that sort of thing. A lot of it has to do with how to think about life. Like it's so interesting. And I have highlighted so many things in this book around just really the way that you should be, right? So one of the biggest things that stuck with me so far in this book is the idea that everyone does things because they have a goal. So even if they say they have a different goal, they really internally, subconsciously have a different one. So I thought that was so interesting, and it really hit me that for the last several years, I've said that I want something, but all of my actions have been towards another goal that secretly is what I wanted. And that really, 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 really hit me hard. And I think that it's really changed the way I think about a lot of things. So if you haven't read The Courage to Be Disliked, it's amazing. It's actually kind of it's where a philosopher and a student are talking. It's similar to the book Sophie's World, if you've ever read that. I read that in high school, which is about philosophy. This book is about psychology, specifically Alfred Adler, who, when I went to Europe my senior year of college, I actually went on a psychology trip and we learned about Adler. So it had been a long time and I didn't remember a lot, but it was really cool to kind of see some of his teachings kind of in practice. Okay, so the next 3 books are a little bit more about communication and writing specifically. I'm not a writer, so I read a lot of books about writing to kind of improve my writing. But one of the books that has changed the game for me is called The Art and Business of Online Writing: How to Beat the Game of Capturing and Keeping Attention by Nicholas Cole. So this past January, I did a 30-day writing challenge over on Twitter, and it's called Ship 30 for 30, and a lot of people have done it. I heard about it on Twitter, and I just decided to pay the money and take this course. It was like a cohort-based course, and it was absolutely fantastic. It was one of the best courses I've ever done. They had so much teaching and learning, but also a lot of doing, which I hadn't really done in a course before. There was about 1,000 students in this course, and it was amazing to actually see it live on Twitter. I had to write every day for 30 days. And the book that kind of came along with the course is also available on Amazon. I think it's like $8. Highly recommend buying it. It really changed my perspective on how online writing works, specifically like why you shouldn't start a blog if you want to be a writer. You should post in public on sites like Twitter and social media platforms. And there was just so many lessons in this book about the 1-3-1 rule with writing. There's all these things. Again, if you're like, what's that? Read the book. It is so great. Okay, so the next book is a great one that I read this year, or maybe last year, called Follow Your Red Thread. Now, I read this book because it had such good reviews, and I read the synopsis and I thought, interesting, I'll learn more about it. But this book really was helpful with clarifying the message that you want to say. No matter what you're doing, if you're pitching something to investors, if you're speaking at a presentation, how to make your point A to point B to point C. It's a really good book, and the whole time I was reading, I kept going, yes, yes, yes. Like I was like shouting out loud. I was like, yes, this is so true. And no one had said it to me in that way before. So if you haven't checked out Find Your Red Thread, I think it's Tamara Webster. It's amazing. And this is one of my favorite books I read last year. Okay, so this is one of my most recent reads, and no one has ever heard of this book. I'm telling you. I went through Amazon. I was looking for a book on this specific subject. I spent 30 minutes of my life going through the Amazon books just to see if there was a book on this topic. And I almost gave up. I'm like, there is nothing about this topic. It just hasn't been written. And then I somehow stumbled across this book. Again, I'd never heard of it before, but it had really good reviews. Not too many, but it had some really good reviews. So I decided to just buy it right then and there after spending 30 minutes of my life looking for a book on this topic. And it's about how to organize your thoughts and communicate efficiently and effectively when you're like presenting something. I had been struggling with talking too much or having too many points. This book was so easy to read. It was very fast, but I learned so much from it. And I have taken a lot of the lessons that I got from this book and have started applying them to my online courses and certain things where I'm presenting. So Sharpening Your Point by Lisa Wallace and Kathy McAfee. Really good book. And again, one you've probably never heard of because I hadn't. Okay, so the last two books are business books, but both of these, if you're in business or not, like I think they're worth the read. The first one is $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. I've been following Alex since reading this book. It was actually like $1 or something on Amazon, and it was #1 in the category, so I thought, I'm just going to read this. Sounds interesting. I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so amazing and so talented. I have to learn more about him. So I started following him on YouTube. Now he's been on Graham Stephan's podcast. He's been on My First Million podcast, which are two of my favorite podcasts. So he is an amazing business person, and the lessons in this book are so great for any business owner. I always tell people to read this if you have a business. $100 Million Offers. It's about offers. It's about how to, sell something. It's a great book on sales, but it's also more about how to package an offer that you have. It's really good. And the last book is Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson. Now, some people don't like Russell Brunson, and I can see why. Like, he can be a little much, but he's really smart and he really knows what he's doing. He's the founder of ClickFunnels, and his books are really good. They're very much like no fluff, straight how to make a sales funnel. I have recently gotten into sales funnels. I became a sales funnel strategist last year, so I know a lot more about sales funnels than I ever did. This book is really good. If you are starting an online business in particular, this book is a must read. There's a couple of books in his series. He's got one, there's Expert Secrets, there's a couple different ones. There's Traffic Secrets, and then there's .com Secrets. I haven't finished Traffic Secrets, but I've read .com Secrets as well. All are great. All are great. Also, there's another book that's in his, by one of his copywriters. It's called Copywriting Secrets by Jim Edwards. Also an amazing book that I would recommend. So all of the ClickFunnels books are great. I don't use ClickFunnels as a software, but I really like the lessons that he's taught. So there's one book that's actually coming out this year I'm really excited to read, and that's Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain. It's the one book I'm really excited about. It's coming out in August. I have sort of started following him, but I'm like, I really just want to read his book and learn more. I know he does a lot of stuff with Notion as well. So that's the one book I'm really excited for in 2022. Other than that, those are some of my favorites. What are yours? Leave a comment below. Let me know if you want me to share more books. I have more. These are just the ones that have really changed my life. So talk to you guys next week.